I wanted to start maybe by acknowledging something I think many of us feel. This cultural belief, almost a promise really, that if you're, fortunate enough to do what you truly love, you won't ever feel tired. It won't feel like work. It sounds so beautiful, doesn't it? Wrapped in this sort of golden light, suggesting passion is just this endless fuel, constant joy, no friction. And for people whose work comes from a really deep place, healers, artists, thinkers, caregivers, we really internalize that, I thought. We take it as gospel.
Yes.
But then,
Yes.
what happens when you find yourself, maybe late at night, just utterly exhausted? You might whisper that phrase, if you love it, you'll never work a day, looking for comfort. But instead, it kind of curdles.
Yes.
It becomes this subtle nagging accusation. And the fatigue, it stops being just physical tiredness. It feels like a personal failure.
Exactly.
That inner voice starts up. If I really love this, how could I be this drained? I must be doing it wrong. And that beautiful promise, it turns into a very quiet, but very effective trap.
It really is a promise that has been deeply misunderstood, I think, by the modern mind. And in that misunderstanding, it's become something quite subtly damaging to the spirit.
How so?
Well, when we hear never working a day in your life, our conditioned response, it's immediate, isn't it? We think not working means like endless output, joyful, maximized production. We just assume if the heart's in it, the body and mind will follow without limit, no complaints.
Right, limitless energy.
But the ancient wisdom, the actual kernel of truth in that idea, it has nothing, really nothing at all to do with productivity metrics. It's all about presence, about how you hold the doing.
Presence.
Yes. When I think about this, I often bring to mind an image, maybe a dedicated individual like a monk or a master artisan, someone who isn't striving but just being. Picture that person at dawn. They're not making anything yet. Hands folded maybe, breath slow, awareness just settled in the moment, stillness. They're not impatiently waiting to start working. They're fully in the pause. That's stillness. That's the foundation.
That feels so counter to everything modern culture tells us. We're supposed to be always ready, always launching, always doing.
Precisely. And yet, if you watch that same person through their day, maybe they're carving something intricate or tending a garden or teaching someone patiently, they move with clear intention, yes, profound dedication even. But crucially, without that feverish urgency that grabs hold of us when we're chasing passion.
That driven feeling.
Exactly. Their work feels more like an offering, not a demand. And the reason it's simple but so fundamental, their actions don't come from needing to prove who they are, not from seeking external validation. They come from a place of, well, sufficiency, presence. And this brings us to a really critical separation we need to understand. Love for something is freeing, it's expansive. Attachment to it, that's restrictive, possessive.
Yeah.
The love can still be there, pure as ever. But the burden, the exhaustion, that comes from the ownership we claim over it, over the outcome.
That distinction, love versus attachment. Oh,
No.
that feels almost impossibly hard to keep separate, especially when our culture rewards fusing them together. We're taught commitment is fusion, right? We define ourselves by what we do. I am a writer. I am a healer. I'm an entrepreneur. We wear those titles like these heavy badges, tying our actual worth to that specific output. So if my sense of self is all tangled up with my work's quality or its reception,
Yeah.
how can I possibly rest? Or handle a setback without feeling like my whole being is threatened? Why does that fusion, even if it's to something beautiful and sacred, become so draining over time?
That fusion, however noble the intention might seem, that's exactly what the wisdom traditions point to as the root of so much suffering. In the Buddhist understanding, it's called upadana. It means clinging.
Grasping.
Yes. And when the self clings to the art, or the mission, or the results, it creates this unbearable spiritual state. The self becomes contingent, dependent. Think about it. If your core sense of self-worth relies entirely on how the market responds to your book, or how fast your organization grows, or how much praise you get, then every little difficulty gets blown way out of proportion.
Oh, absolutely.
A critique isn't just feedback on the work. It feels like an attack on your soul.
Yes.
A temporary pause, maybe needing rest, isn't just a pause. It feels like an identity crisis. And this creates this perpetual motion machine fueled by fear. You're not really acting to create anymore. You're acting to prop up this fragile version of yourself that's defined by the creation.
That explains so much.
That's the kind of exhaustion sleep can't fix.
And the guilt. That crushing guilt that comes with passion fatigue, that inner voice, the demanding one, it just lays into you. How dare you be tired? This is your calling. You should be grateful. Push through. Prove you're dedicated.
The tyranny of should.
I see this playing out constantly, especially online. This pressure to ship fast, always be creating. You pour your heart into something, maybe a piece of writing, you post it, and then minutes later, you're compulsively refreshing the stats page. Is that refreshing, that immediate need for external validation? Is that upadana in action?
Oh, absolutely. That impulse, that need to immediately check the likes, the shares, the comments, the sales, that is the signature of clinging in our modern world. A perfect example.
Wow.
You're looking for the outside world to confirm an inner feeling of worth that ideally should have been sourced from within before you even started creating.
Right.
That impulse shows that the doing has shifted. It's become a performance, not a practice. And you have to face the truth your heart probably already senses. Even the most sacred fire will consume you if you try to hold it too tightly.
That's a powerful image.
Think about a candle flame. We admire it, right? For its clarity, its warmth, its devotion. But imagine, in your deep love for that light, you cup your hands too closely around it.
You smother it.
You smother it. You cut off the oxygen it needs. The fire itself, your passion, it hasn't changed its nature. It's still sacred. But your relationship to it has become suffocating. You've stopped honoring its need for space, for fuel, for rest, for the simple truth that light needs a container and replenishment to burn wisely. When we ignore those needs in our beloved work, that's when the self-consumption begins. Quietly at first, then. Not so quietly.
So the passion itself gets kind of hijacked by the pressure to constantly perform.
Yes, that's a good way to put it.
Intrinsic motivation, that joy of just doing the thing because it resonates. It slowly morphs into this extrinsic obligation.
Exactly.
You start creating or serving not for the act itself, but like you said, to prove something, to stay visible, or just to outrun that fear of becoming irrelevant.
Yeah.
But I have to push back a little here. Doesn't that pressure sometimes, well, create diamonds? If I completely let go of attachment to the outcome, won't I lose my drive, that edge, that friction that pushes me towards excellence?
That is such a vital question, and it really highlights a core misunderstanding in our culture. We confuse attachment with care. True devotion, true commitment to doing something well, it doesn't actually require clinging. In fact, I'd argue clinging diminishes excellence.
That was so.
Because it clouds your judgment with anxiety, with fear of failure. If you're driven purely by attachment, you might rush the process, you might compromise your integrity just to please an audience or hit a deadline, or you simply burn out and stop creating altogether.
Right, the burnout is real.
But if you're driven by pure, non-attached devotion, your standard of excellence remains, maybe even deepens, because the quality becomes an internal measure. It reflects your commitment to the process, to the craft itself, not just the external result.
So the care is still there, but the desperate need for a specific result is lessened.
Precisely. And the deep irony, as you mentioned, is that the more you genuinely love your work, the more susceptible you are to this quiet erosion, because love makes you want to give more and more and more. You push past every natural limit.
You mistake sacrifice for devotion.
Yes. Until eventually, there's nothing left but this hollow echo of effort. The passion is gone, replaced by the grind.
This tension. It must be incredibly intense for people whose work is directly about helping others. You know, nurses, therapists, teachers, activists.
Oh, absolutely.
They often feel they have the least justification to pause, don't they?
Yeah.
They tell themselves these noble stories. I have to do this for the vulnerable, or this mission is too important to stop, or if I take a break, someone else suffers. In that kind of environment, how do you even find the line between genuine, compassionate service and just destructive self-erasure?
The line, again, it's drawn by wisdom. We have to look at the principle of karuṇā, true compassion.
Karuṇā.
Yes. In the wisdom traditions, karuṇā is never, ever martyrdom. It's not about erasing yourself. In fact, it's fundamentally impossible to offer authentic compassion if you're operating from a place of constant depletion.
So you can't pour from an empty cup, essentially.
Exactly that. Authentic compassion must arise from a state of inner sufficiency, from a full cup, metaphorically speaking.
Yeah.
When our culture teaches us to admire people who give until they have nothing left, we're actually praising a romanticized form of slow self-abandonment.
That's sobering.
Compassion without wisdom, meaning, compassion without awareness of your own limits, your own needs, it inevitably leads to burnout. And burnout isn't some noble sacrifice. It's actually a kind of spiritual failing because it ultimately reduces your capacity to genuinely help anyone in the long run.
That runs so counter to the hero narrative. We're constantly sold. We glorify the founder working through illness, The doctor pulling endless shifts, the artist running on fumes. We've mixed up exhaustion with virtue.
We have. We've traded sustainability for intensity. If you look at the great examples of wisdom throughout history, they modeled restraint. Think of the Buddha. After his awakening under the Bodhi tree, he didn't immediately jump up and start preaching to everyone. He waited. He rested. He integrated. He acted out of wisdom, waiting for the right conditions both within himself and in the world before beginning decades of teaching and service. He showed that even the purest impulse to serve needs to be grounded in alignment and stillness first.
And yet, we see this painful paradox everywhere now, especially in like the creative economy. That potter you mentioned earlier, who once just loved the feeling of clay. Now her sense of security, maybe her identity, is tied to follower counts. So she's posting constantly, creating new product lines, answering messages late at night.
Working from fear.
Exactly. Fear of irrelevance, not the joy of the wheel. She's not just making pottery anymore. She's performing pottery for an algorithm.
And that performance, eventually, it poisons the practice itself. It really does.
It's insidious.
And you see it with, say, the wellness coach who teaches hundreds about inner peace but hasn't had 5 minutes of genuine, unmonitored silence for themselves in weeks. They're scrolling analytics at 3 a.m. trying to quantify their human worth in clicks or course enrollments.
Oh, I know that feeling.
Their message might still be true, but their life has become a performance of truth, not an embodiment of it. And that's the defining irony of our time, I think. We've taken these profound inner practices, things meant to cultivate stillness and peace, and we've turned them into just another form of relentless productivity.
So if the cup feels empty, truly empty, but we feel we have to keep pouring because of obligations, duty, whatever it is, how do we get back to that sustainable flow? What does that path actually look like?
It requires a fundamental reorientation, a shift in how we relate to action itself. This really gets to the heart of what's known as karma yoga, particularly in the Bhagavad Gita. The teaching is essentially, do your duty, perform your action, but release your attachment to the fruits, the results of that action.
Detachment from the outcome.
Yes, but it's not apathy. It's not about not caring. It's a sign of profound spiritual maturity. It means you care deeply about the quality of your work, about the integrity of your effort, but you consciously snip that cord of ownership to the result. Whether it brings praise or criticism, success or failure, your inner state remains steady because your commitment was to the doing, not the reward.
Okay, I think I'm starting to see that distinction between care and attachment more clearly now.
You build, you create, you serve, not to prove yourself, but because that expression is just your natural way of being in the world. Think of a river. Does a river flow to be admired by the people on the bank?
No, it just flows.
It just flows, because flowing is its nature. If a beaver builds a dam, the river isn't existentially wounded. It adapts. It finds a new path or it builds pressure. Its essential nature remains flow.
Moving from that output-driven need to prove something towards just essence-driven flow. That sounds like it requires a lot of self-awareness. How do we even begin that internal check-in? What are the first signs that love has maybe curdled into obligation?
The inquiry starts very gently. With quiet, non-judgmental noticing, we have to really look at the quality of our tiredness. Ask yourself this, is my fatigue just physical? Or is there a deeper spiritual exhaustion here, the sheer weight of being out of alignment? Often, physical tiredness gets amplified massively by the mental drain of doing something, even something respected, that no longer resonates with your deepest truth.
Even if it looks good on paper.
Exactly. So start asking these gentle questions. Think of them as invitations for realignment, not weapons for self-criticism. Questions like, am I doing this specific action right now because it genuinely nourishes me? Or am I just scared of what I might lose, status, income, identity, if I stop?
That's a tough one.
It is. Or have I somehow confused my inherent value as a human being with my visible output or my external achievements? And here's a really revealing one, perhaps. When was the last time I did this work? The painting, the coding, the counseling, the writing in total privacy, with no possibility of it being measured, seen, or rewarded externally. The answer to that last one often tells you a lot about how much pure passion remains separate from the performance.
Okay, so these questions, they can definitely bring up some deep-seated fears. Fear of stopping, fear of not being enough. If we realize, okay, yeah, I am operating from fear or lack or just this grinding pressure, what are the practical tools, the really actionable things we can do to start loosening that ego grip on the role we play?
The tools are beautifully simple in concept, but they do require consistent presence to be effective. The first one is mindful pausing.
Okay.
Before you initiate any significant piece of work, logging onto your computer, picking up your tools, starting a meeting, just take 3 deep, deliberate breaths. Really feel them anchor you in your body. Settle your nervous system. Then, right after those breaths, ask this single clarifying question. Is this action I'm about to take coming from fullness or from lack?
Fullness or lack?
Yes. And pay attention to the immediate physical sensation of the answer. Fullness usually feels calm, maybe expansive, rooted. Lack often feels tight, rushed, anxious, maybe in the chest or stomach.
I can picture that.
If the intuitive sense is lack, if the driver is comparison, guilt, fear, just sheer habit, you must pause just for a moment. Don't launch into the task from that depleted state. Stand up, maybe look out the window, notice a tree. Let that immediate anxious urge to just do something pass through you without acting on it. We have to consciously create space before the action.
That really changes the whole texture of a workday, doesn't it?
Yeah.
From just managing time to managing our internal state.
It does. It shifts the ground completely. The second practice is non-identification. This works subtly to loosen the ego's tight grip on your self-definition. We tend to overuse these big declarative identity statements. I'm a successful leader, or worse, I'm a failure. We merge our being with our doing.
Right, like the badges we talked about.
Exactly. So we practice non-identification by gently shifting our language. Instead of, I am a photographer, try the simpler, more present statement. I am taking photos today. Instead of, I am a healer, maybe I am offering healing in this interaction. It seems small, but this shift is profoundly liberating. It reminds you that you are the steady awareness, the underlying stillness that exists behind the temporary role you're playing.
So the awareness is constant, the role can change.
Precisely. The work can ebb and flow, projects can succeed or fail, roles can even cease entirely, but your essential being remains whole, untouched by the outcome.
Okay, that feels lighter.
And the third tool, perhaps the most radical in our hyper-productive world, is to ritualize rest as sacred practice.
We ritualize rest.
We're conditioned, aren't we, to see rest as something we earn only after intense effort, or as a sign of laziness we need to overcome.
It's often the first thing to go when we're busy.
But in many wisdom traditions, certainly in monastic life, rest isn't seen as a break from practice. Rest is the practice. It's essential.
That feels like the biggest mental shift needed. We schedule work meticulously, but rest is just, if there's time left over, which there rarely is.
We have to consciously reverse that. True clarity, insight, sustainable creative energy, they don't bubble up from constant grinding. They arise in the space between the actions, in the silence between the notes. So we need to build boundaries that fiercely protect this sacred, non-productive space. And you don't need a fancy retreat. You just need boundaries wrapped in reverence for your own replenishment.
What might those boundaries look like, practically?
They can be simple. Commit to turning off notifications, all of them for maybe 2 designated hours each day. Not as a punishment to the outside world, but as a conscious act of protecting your inner sanctuary. Try saying no to one non-essential request this week. Not from selfishness, but from deep self-respect for your finite energy.
Saying no. Still hard for many of us.
It is, but vital. Or when you finish your work for the day, create a deliberate closing ritual. Close the laptop, put down the tools, and immediately walk outside, even for just 10 or 15 minutes. And leave your phone behind. Just be. These aren't acts of quitting or slacking off. They are acts of sacred reclamation, reclaiming yourself.
Sometimes, though, the exhaustion feels just so deep. So absolute. It stops feeling like a problem I need to fix with better scheduling and starts feeling more like a message, a really loud alarm bell going off inside.
Yes.
If we've spent years just hitting snooze on that alarm, maybe with caffeine or sheer willpower, how do we finally learn to listen to it without judging ourselves for being tired in the first place?
That deep fatigue is a sacred messenger. You're right. It's not a sign of your inadequacy at all. It's a mirror. And it's reflecting your current state of disconnection from your breath, maybe, from your body's natural rhythms, and most importantly, disconnection from that inner stillness, which is the true, inexhaustible source of energy. The radical truth here is, rest isn't just recovery. Rest is revelation.
Rest is revelation. Say more about that.
When you're profoundly exhausted, even by work you genuinely cherish, it's often a sign you've drifted away from samādhi, that state of meditative absorption, of flow. In samādhi, action happens effortlessly. It flows directly from presence. There's no internal resistance. Effort seems to dissolve into ease. And joy isn't the reward you get at the end, it's the actual texture of the moment itself.
That sounds amazing and rare.
It can feel rare when we're disconnected, when we lose that connection because the work gets tangled up with fear or identity or pleasing others or hitting targets. We fall into what you could call tense doing. Every email feels heavy. Every decision feels fraught. Every creative act becomes this strange performance for an invisible, critical audience, maybe just the demanding version of ourselves we think we need to be.
Yeah, the internal critic.
Exactly. And in that state of constant tension, even love, even passion, inevitably turns into the most grueling kind of labor.
So the exhaustion isn't necessarily a signal to abandon the path, but a signal that we have to radically change how we're walking it.
Yes.
To get back to that core why, the wordless reason we started, before metrics and brands and external pressures ever showed up.
Precisely. That is the essential pivot. The deep understanding we need to absorb is this. You are not here primarily to sustain your work. Your work is here to sustain your awakening, your unique expression in the world.
That flips the usual script.
It does. Think
Okay.
about any truly wise leader, any great creative spirit you admire. They understood that service, that creation, has to be rhythmic. They knew how to withdraw in order to return replenished. They emptied themselves wisely, strategically, to ensure they could refill fully. They honored the natural cycle, contraction and expansion, action and stillness. So if you find your energy vanishing, your inspiration drying up, your capacity just dwindling, it's almost certainly not because the work itself is wrong. It's because the fundamental inner ground, the stillness, the self-compassion, the space has become depleted. The river stops flowing not because the river is flawed, but because the source has been neglected.
Okay, that resonates. When we do finish something, a big project, maybe a difficult conversation, even just a piece of writing, we often carry its weight, its expectations right into the next moment. We don't really separate. How can we practice true release? Create some psychological hygiene around completion.
We need a conscious act, often a physical one, to really sever that lingering cord of attachment. I call this the ritual of release.
Okay.
At the absolute end of a work session, doesn't matter if it was short or long, easy or hard, you must pause. Stand up or just shift in your seat. Consciously place your hands somewhere centering, maybe on your heart, maybe your belly. Take one deep, cleansing breath, in and out, and then either say it aloud or state it clearly in your mind. I release this work back to the universe. It is no longer mine to control.
It is no longer mine to control.
Yes, it sounds simple, but that phrase holds real power. It's an active cutting of that invisible thread binding your identity, your ego, to the outcome of what you just did. You're consciously returning the work to its proper place, not as some fragile extension of you, but as just one ripple you've contributed to the vast ocean. It allows you to walk away clean with your essential self intact, regardless of what happens next with that work.
That feels incredibly useful. What else?
Next, we need to deliberately, consciously reintroduce emptiness into our creative or work process.
Emptiness. That sounds a bit daunting.
It can sound that way in our culture that prizes fullness and busyness. But in Zen, the concept of mu, often translated as nothingness or no mind, isn't about nihilism or apathy at all. It's understood as the fertile void, the pregnant pause from which true, unforced creativity arises.
The fertile void. I like that.
So, before starting something new, a project, a meeting, even just the day, try sitting in silence for 5 solid minutes. Set a timer if you need to, and the instruction is don't plan, don't review yesterday, don't strategize, just let the mind settle. Like watching muddy water in a glass gradually become clear when you leave it absolutely still.
Okay, just sit.
Just sit. And then, from that place of settled clarity, you can ask the profound question. What wants to emerge through me now? Not what do I want to force out of myself?
Shifting from forcing to allowing.
Exactly. And you'll often find the answer that whispers up from that stillness is gentler, maybe slower, but ultimately far more truthful and potent than anything the frantic, agenda-driven mind could concoct. And finally, just keep reinforcing the third tool. Protect unproductive time. Protect it fiercely, as if it's the most critical appointment in your week. Because in a way it is.
Schedule it.
Schedule it. Guard it. Give it a name even. Sacred non-doing time. This isn't about laziness or indulgence. It's essential spiritual maintenance. Use that time to stare at clouds, watch leaves blowing in the wind, brew a cup of tea and just focus on the warmth, the steam, the taste, nothing else. In those moments, you're not wasting time. You are actively reweaving your connection to the present moment, which is, after all, the only place where insight, integration, and real life ever actually happen.
And it's about realizing that this kind of rest isn't just nice to have, it's actually intelligent. It's how we function best.
Precisely. Modern neuroscience is actually confirming this ancient wisdom, the brain's default mode network, what scientists call the resting state. That's the engine room for deep integration, problem solving, and genuine insight. True creativity often doesn't come from relentless grinding. It comes from wandering, from allowing the subconscious mind the space to make novel connections between seemingly disparate ideas. So I really encourage you and anyone listening to try looking at your fatigue differently, not as a personal flaw to be hidden or pushed through, but as a compassionate teacher, a wise guide. Remember, every great spiritual journey, including the Buddha's own path, didn't start with easy bliss. It started with a stark, unavoidable recognition of suffering, of unease. He didn't run from it, he sat with it, he honored it, and in that deep witnessing, he awakened. Your exhaustion, your burnout, it can be your personal Bodhi moment, your awakening moment. It's profoundly honest. It cuts through the illusion that you are somehow capable of endless output without replenishment, or constant striving without stillness.
Seeing it as a teacher, that changes everything.
So maybe today, allow yourself to genuinely thank your tiredness. Thank it for showing you exactly where you've stretched yourself too thin, where you've become disconnected from your true self. Thank it for the simple, humbling reminder that you are a human being, a sacred vessel for life to move through, not an infinite machine, not a brand. You are a being who requires the quiet darkness, the fallow periods, to truly appreciate and sustain the light.
So we stop. We stop exhausting ourselves in the name of dedication, and instead, we consciously make space for that profound shift towards devotion without depletion.
Beautifully put. Devotion without depletion. And this new way of working, this new way of being, it truly begins when you stop trying to fill some perceived inner void with frantic activity, and instead you learn to express the quiet fullness that is actually already present within you, beneath the noise. The aim is to shift from the fire that consumes itself in its own intensity to the fire that illuminates the space around it, the kind of fire that is self-sustaining because it draws its energy from that endless, deep well of presence within. That well is not empty. It never was. Perhaps we just forgot that we needed to pause long enough to drink from it. So, as you go back into your day, maybe choose just one small countercultural act, an immediate experiment in realignment. Perhaps it's deleting that one app on your phone that constantly pulls you out of the present moment, or maybe committing to trying just one 25-minute focused work interval, followed immediately by 5 full minutes of phone-free, screen-free silence, just looking out the window or at the ceiling. This quiet rebellion, the small act of reclaiming your attention, of honoring your need for space. That's where your true sustainable power actually lies.